the moment Cooper entered the room. Something shifted. His eyes locked onto Savannah's. And, without hesitation, the German shepherd gently rested his head in her lap as if he'd known her forever, for a girl who had faced more challenges in 12 years than most do in a lifetime. That simple touch felt like magic. Her father, Robert, watched as the weight of isolation seemed to lift from her shoulders, all because of this dog. But what happened next went far beyond what anyone could have predicted. Cooper wasn't just there to help, he was about to transform Savannah's life in ways no one could have imagined. The fluorescent lights of Minneapolis Children's Hospital cast harsh shadows across Robert Mitchell's face as he watched his daughter Savannah sleeping in the recovery room. At 12 years old, she had already endured more surgeries than most people face in a lifetime. This latest operation and attempt to improve her leg mobility had left her in more pain than the doctors had anticipated. Her cerebral palsy, diagnosed shortly after a traumatic birth, had shaped every aspect of their lives, but nothing had prepared him for the quiet devastation of watching her suffer. Sarah, his wife of 15 years, had fallen asleep in the uncomfortable hospital chair beside their daughter's bed, her scrubs still on from her shift in the emergency department downstairs. The double burden of being both a mother and a medical professional weighed heavily on her. She understood, perhaps too well, every complication and risk their daughter faced. Their life hadn't always been this complex before Savannah's birth. Robert and Sarah had been the epitome of a young professional couple on the rise. He had just started his own consulting firm, and she was completing her residency. They planned everything perfectly, or so they thought. The pregnancy had been textbook until it wasn't. A placental abruption had sent them rushing to the hospital 3 weeks early. The ensuing complications had left Savannah oxygen deprived for crucial minutes, forever altering the trajectory of their lives. Now, watching his daughter's chest rise and fall in the dim hospital room, Robert felt the familiar weight of helplessness settle over him. The surgeries were supposed to get easier, but each one seemed to take a greater toll on their families' collective spirit. Savannah's resilience amazed him, but he could see the isolation and frustration building behind her brave smile. The idea of a service dog had first occurred to Robert 6 months earlier during one of Savannah's physical therapy sessions. A golden retriever named Max had visited, with his handler demonstrating assistance techniques for another patient. Robert had noticed how Savannah's eyes followed the dog's every move, how her face lit up when Max briefly approached her wheelchair. That evening he had broached the subject with Sarah, only to be met with immediate resistance. "Robert, we can barely manage our current schedule," she had argued, exhaustion evident in her voice. Between the surgeries, therapy sessions, and regular doctor's appointments, adding a dog would be impossible. But the SE had been planted, and Robert couldn't shake the image of his daughter's face lighting up at the sight of Max. He began researching service dogs in secret, spending his lunch breaks reading success stories and watching training videos. The more he learned, the more convinced he became that this could be the change their family desperately needed. The turning point came 3 months after that initial conversation during a particularly difficult day at Savannah's middle school. Her wheelchair chair had malfunctioned, leaving her stranded in a hallway between classes. By the time a teacher found her, she had missed half of her math class and was fighting back tears of humiliation. That evening she refused to eat dinner, retreating to her room with the kind of quiet resignation that frightened Robert more than any outburst could. Standing in her doorway that night, watching her struggle to reach a book from her shelf, Robert made his decision. The next morning, he presented Sarah with a comprehensive proposal over breakfast. While Savannah was still asleep, I found a specialized training center in St. Paul he explained, sliding a folder across. Their kitchen table they work, specifically with German Shepherds for mobility assistance the dogs undergo too. Years of training before placement. Sarah's medical training made her a methodical decision maker. She read through each page carefully, her coffee growing cold beside her the cost. She began, but Robert was prepared. I've been saving, he said, and I've already spoken with our insurance. They'll cover part of it as a medical assistance device. What finally convinced Sarah wasn't the carefully prepared documentation or the financial planning. It was a video Robert had found of a young girl not much older than Savannah, working with her service dog to navigate daily tasks. The joy and independence on the girl's face spoke louder than any statistics could. 2 weeks later, they made their first visit to New Horizon Service Dog Training Center. The facility sat on the outskirts of St. Paul, a modern building surrounded by training yards and obstacle courses. Jessica Warner, the program director, greeted them with the kind of warm professionalism that put both parents at ease. We believe perfect matches, Jessica explained as she led them through the facility. Each dog's personality and training is tailored to their future handler's specific needs. They met several dogs that day, each one expertly trained and capable, but it was Cooper who changed everything the moment the German Shepherd entered the room. Something shifted in the atmosphere. While the other dogs had been professionally polite, Cooper showed an immediate and intense interest in Anna. He approached her wheelchair with a gentleness that brought tears to Sarah's eyes. Without prompting, he placed his head in Savannah's lap, his brown eyes fixed on her face with an intelligence that seemed to transcend mere training. When Savannah dropped her phone, a common occurrence due to her limited fine motor control, Cooper retrieved it before anyone could react, placing it carefully in her lap. In 15 years of training service dogs, Jessica remarked, I've never seen such an immediate connection. The next month was a blur of paperwork, training sessions, and home preparations. Robert threw himself into learning everything he could about service dog care and maintenance. Sarah, despite her initial reservations, found herself researching the latest studies on animal-assisted therapy. Even Savannah's physical therapist, Dr. Martinez, became involved, adapting her treatment plans to incorporate Cooper's assistance. The first few weeks with Cooper at home were challenging in ways they hadn't anticipated. Sarah struggled with the dog hair on her meticulously kept floors. Robert had to completely restructure his morning routine to accommodate Cooper's exercise needs. Savannah, excited but nervous, had to learn to give commands with confidence despite her speech challenges, but Cooper's patience seemed inexhaustible. When Savannah's words came out slurred, he waited calmly for her to repeat herself. When she dropped things 20 times in a row during training sessions, his enthusiasm never wavered. Each success, no matter how small, was met with the same warm devotion. The first major test of their new partnership came sooner than anyone expected. 3 months after Cooper joined their family, Savannah developed a severe upper respiratory infection. Her compromised immune system, a common complication of cerebral palsy, turned what should have been a minor illness into a serious concern. Late one night, as her fever spiked dangerously high, it was Cooper who alerted them first. His urgent barking woke Robert and Sarah moments before their daughter began having difficulty breathing. His early warning gave them crucial extra minutes to react. In the emergency room, doctors later confirmed that his alertness had prevented a potentially dangerous situation. During Savannah's 3-day hospital stay, Cooper refused to leave her side. The hospital made an exception to their usual policies, recognizing the profound impact the dog's presence had on their young patient's recovery. The sight of Cooper's steady presence beside Savannah's bed became a source of hope for other families in the pediatric ward. As Savannah recovered, Cooper's influence On her daily life became increasingly evident. Physical therapy sessions, once dreaded, became opportunities for achievement with Cooper's sturdy frame to lean on. Savannah began making progress in her standing exercises. Dr. Martinez documented improvements in her core strength and balance that exceeded their most optimistic projections, but it was at school where the most remarkable transformation occurred. Before Cooper, Savannah had been the girl in the wheelchair, someone to be helped, pitted, or worse, ignored. Cooper's presence changed the entire dynamic. Suddenly she was the girl with the amazing dog who could pick up dropped pencils, open doors, and help carry books. The change in her social interactions was profound. Students who had never known how to approach her now had a natural conversation starter. Cooper bridged the awkward gap that had existed between Savannah and her peers, making her more approachable and helping others see past her wheelchair. Yet tragedy struck again. Just as things seemed to be improving, during a routine medical checkup, doctors discovered a complication from Savannah's recent surgery. She would need another operation, one that would require a lengthy recovery period and force her to miss the end of the school year. The news hit the family hard. Sarah blamed herself for not catching the complications sooner. Despite her medical training, Robert struggled with the financial implications of more medical bills and missed work, but it was Savannah's reaction that surprised them all. Instead of retreating into depression as she had before previous surgeries, she faced the challenge with newfound determination. Cooper's presence seemed to give her strength they hadn't known she possessed. During pre-surgery appointments, she focused on explaining medical procedures to Cooper, which helped her process her own fears. His calm presence during her anxiety attacks became more effective than any medication. The surgery was scheduled for early spring. The night before, as Savannah lay in her hospital bed, Cooper performed a task that would later become legendary among the hospital staff. Sensing her elevated stress levels, he retrieved her favorite book from her overnight bag, brought it to her parents, then positioned himself so she could rest her hand on his head while they read to her. The simple act transformed a night that could have been filled with fear into one of quiet comfort. The surgery lasted 6 hours, during which Cooper lay in the waiting room, with Robert and Sarah getting up only to comfort them when their anxiety became overwhelming. When Savannah finally emerged from recovery, Cooper's gentle lick to her hand was the first thing that brought a smile to her face. The recovery period tested everyone's endurance. Physical therapy was more demanding than ever, and there were days when Savannah's determination wavered. But Cooper seemed to know exactly when to offer support and when to push her further. During therapy sessions, he began anticipating her movements, positioning himself perfectly to assist with balance exercises without being asked. Sarah, watching her daughter work through her exercises with Cooper's help, finally understood what Robert had seen all those months ago. This wasn't just about having a service dog, it was about giving their daughter a partner in her journey, someone who could support her in ways they couldn't. As spring turned to summer, Savannah's recovery progressed faster than anyone had predicted. Her doctors attributed much of her success to her increased activity level with Cooper. The daily walks they took together had strengthened her muscles in ways that traditional therapy alone couldn't achieve. The bond between Savannah and Cooper continued to deepen in unexpected ways. He learned to anticipate her muscle spasms before they became severe, alerting her so she could change positions or take medication. During anxiety attacks, he would apply gentle pressure to her legs, providing calming deep tissue stimulation that helped her regain control. Their partnership caught the attention of local media, and soon Savannah and Cooper became minor celebrities in the Minneapolis disability community. They were invited to speak at schools and hospitals, sharing their story and educating others about service dogs. Savannah, who had once been too shy to speak in class, found her voice as an advocate for disability rights and service animal awareness. The following year brought both challenges and triumphs. Savannah faced another surgery, but this time she approached it with Cooper by her side and confidence in her heart. The hospital staff, now familiar with their extraordinary partnership, made special arrangements to ensure Cooper could remain with her as much as possible during her recovery. Savannah and Cooper began visiting other children in the hospital's long-term care ward. The sight of a young girl in a wheelchair with her devoted German shepherd brought hope to families facing similar challenges. Cooper seemed to understand the importance of these visits, adjusting his behavior to suit each child's needs, gentle with the nervous ones, playful with those who needed cheering up. As they approached the 2-year anniversary of Cooper joining their family, Robert and Sarah organized a celebration that became much more than a simple party. The event, held in a local park, drew hundreds of people from the community. Families considering service dogs came to learn from their experience. Medical professionals tended to observe the remarkable progress Savannah had made. The highlight of the celebration came when Savannah, with Cooper's support, took several steps without her wheelchair. The moment wasn't planned, it happened naturally as she reached to hug a friend. The crowd fell silent, then erupted in applause as she managed 3 wobbly but determined steps before returning to her chair that evening. After the crowds had gone home and the excitement had died down, Robert found Savannah and Cooper in the backyard. She was sitting in her wheelchair, chatting quietly to her companion as the sun set. "You know what, Dad," she said as he approached. "I used to think Cooper was here to help me do things I couldn't do, but now I know he's here to show me things I didn't know I could do." Sarah joined them, sitting on the grass beside Savannah's chair. Cooper shifted positions slightly, making sure he maintained contact with both Savannah and her mother. The family sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars appear one by one in the darkening sky. 2 months later, Savannah faced yet another challenge. A routine checkup revealed the need for additional surgery, her most complex procedure yet. But this time the news didn't devastate them as it once would have. Cooper's presence had changed not just how Savannah faced challenges, but how the entire family approached adversity. The night before the surgery, as Robert helped Savannah prepare for bed, he found her writing in her journal. Cooper lay at her feet, his head resting on her footrest. "I'm writing about the day we met, Cooper," she explained, showing him the page covered in her careful handwriting. "I want to remember everything about it because that's the day my life really began." Robert read the entry, his vision blurring with tears as he reached the final lines. "Some people think Cooper is amazing because of all the things he helps me do, but that's not why he's amazing. He's amazing because he helped me find out who I really am." As he tucked her in that night, Robert watched Cooper take his usual position beside her bed. The dog's unwavering dedication, his intuitive understanding of exactly what Savannah needed, and when she needed it, had transformed their lives in ways none of them could have imagined. The German shepherd's presence had become so much more than physical assistance. He was a bridge between what was and what could be, between limitation and possibility, between fear and hope. He had shown them all that sometimes the most profound changes come not from medical breakthroughs or surgical procedures, but from the simple, steadfast presence of a devoted friend. In the years that followed, Savannah and Coop's story would inspire countless other families to consider service dogs for their children. Their journey would be featured in medical journals, documenting the remarkable physical and emotional benefits of their partnership. But for the Mitchell family, Cooper's greatest miracle was the simple joy he brought to their daily lives the way he had helped them all learn to focus not on what they couldn't do, but on what they could do. Together as Robert closed Savannah's door that night, leaving her sleeping peacefully with Cooper's standing guard, he reflected on how a single decision, made in a moment of desperate hope, had created such profound ripples of change. What had begun as a father's wish to help his daughter had transformed not only their family but their entire community, touching lives in ways they never could have anticipated. Cooper had indeed amazed everyone, but his greatest achievement wasn't in the tasks he performed or the assistance he provided. It was in the way he had helped a young girl discover her own strength, a mother find new hope, and a father realize that sometimes the most powerful medicine doesn't come in bottles or through surgeries, but in the form of a faithful friend with four paws and an unwavering heart.